for joining us. This is Empowerment Liberation Cathedral's Word Wednesday study. I ask that you would take a few moments and like this broadcast. Take a few moments and share this broadcast. Take a few moments and make sure all of your family and friends are watching this broadcast along with you. All right, again, Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. Thank you so much for tuning in on tonight. Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. This is our Word Wednesday. And so we hope that each and every one of you will hear what we have planned for you on tonight and are blessed by it. You can always find us on Facebook at Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. You can find us on Instagram at Empower Cathedral. You can find us on Twitter at Empower Cathedral. You can find us on Roku at Empowerment Live Cathedral. And so thank you so much for tuning in on tonight. Thank you so much. We have Minister Kat who is on, and she's going to talk some on tonight with us. Again, we want to invite you to like this broadcast. We invite you to share this broadcast. We have Deacon Sylvester who is on tonight and who is going to also chime in on tonight. But we want to give you a few moments to share this broadcast. We want to give you a few moments to make sure that we are giving you time to sign in. Again, welcome to Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. Again, this is our Word Wednesday. It is 7:02, and so we will give you a few moments to sign on. Tonight we have a good topic for you, and so we ask that you would be sure to share this broadcast with everyone that you know, and make sure that you stay until the end of the broadcast. All right, well, we'll get started. First, we want to have our opening prayer. And so let us have a prayer at this time. Gracious Holy God, thank you for this time. Thank you, oh God, for this night, which we'll never see again. Thank you, oh God, for keeping us and covering us in all that we do. God, we ask that the words and the meditation of our hearts might be acceptable in your sight. God, we ask that the people near and far might join in, and we might grow and stretch together. We might rightly divide the word together. We might hear you speaking together. God, I ask that you'll bless the works of my hands on tonight. God, and continue to bless this great church, Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. Continue to bless the leadership and all of the members. God, this is my prayer. I lift you in Jesus' holy name. I do pray. Amen and thank God. All right, so we have added a special feature, and so we do want you to know what that is. Our special feature that we have added is that you will be able to comment, and we can see your comment on screen, and we will be able to respond to your comments. Anybody like that feature? I think that is great since we're not in the same space. And so we have worked to come up with ways to figure out how to engage and how to hear from you. And so we don't want to just present the subject matter and not be able to hear from you, because that's what Bible study is about. Bible study usually is where we can talk and have a conversation. We can hear from each other, and we can share in each other's ideas and comments. And so we want to make sure that you are able to share your ideas, share your comments, share your thoughts. And then at that point, um, we can comment on what you have said, what you have shared. And so, again, make sure you type in the chat what it is that you want to say, and then it'll come across the screen, and it'll be just like we're all in the same space. Everybody can see what you said, and then we can possibly give a comment or a response to that which you're asking or that which you're saying. All right, so our subject for tonight, I want us to talk about endurance. Um, and so when we look at endurance, we have to understand that a lot of us are doing a lot of things at this time. And I would say most of us, if we're still here, if we're still standing, have endured the pandemic. Anybody agree with that? We have endured and are still enduring the pandemic. And so I believe it's important for us to understand that in this pandemic, we want to make sure that we continue to stand, continue to thrive, continue to survive, and continue to know that God is able to do anything but fail. And so I want us to make sure that we are thriving and surviving in this pandemic. Okay. Anybody feel like this pandemic is going a little bit longer than what we had expected? The pandemic is like we had expected. First of all, some people expected it to be over in about 90 days, and then some people gave it 6 months. Some people said, well, maybe a year, and then some people said, well, I think it may be a little bit longer than that. But now that we look at it, we are understanding that the pandemic is going a lot longer than we thought. And so now here we are at a year and a half of the pandemic. And so if you felt the pandemic should have been over, just post it on the page that you felt the pandemic should have been over by now. And so, those of us who are still here, those of us who are surviving and thriving, we actually felt that the pandemic really should have been over by now. But since it's not, we are enduring, and we have even made some adjustments. Okay. We have made some adjustments, and we are continuing to stand and continuing to survive in the midst of the pandemic. Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I brought that to our attention that, some of us thought it was supposed to have been over, and it's still here. Some of us wish it would be over, but it's still here. And oftentimes, situations that you have to endure, that you have to deal with, that you have to just kind of um, determine that you're going to go ahead and make it. Um, you there's nothing you can do about it. You are not in control of anything. And so I believe that's one of the things we have to realize on today, that we are not in control of anything. We don't have control over when the pandemic will be over. We don't have control over when the pandemic will begin or end, and what will happen in the midst of the pandemic. And so I just believe that we have to, at some point, realize that, you know, we just have to endure, stay the course, continue to pray, continue to believe God, and thrive and survive in the midst of everything that's going on. And so, what does that entail? First of all, it entails an acceptance on our part. Okay. Acceptance meaning that this situation, we just have to accept it for what it is. Okay. We have to accept that there was a pandemic that came. There was a pandemic that started. We didn't have any control over that. There were people in charge who may not have made the best decisions. We didn't have any control over that. Then there are people today who still are not making the best decisions on behalf of others because they're not wanting to wear masks, not wanting to follow CDC guidelines and instructions, but we don't have any control over that either. Okay, so acceptance has to be a part if you're going to be able to endure the situation at hand. And so you have to accept the situation for what it is, and give yourself the ability to devote your energy to deal with that you can control. All right? Hear me again. I need somebody to comment on that. Accept that which you can, uh, which you are in, and give yourself the freedom to deal with and give your energy over to those things which you can control. So, for example, we're in a pandemic. As I said, we can't control when it will start or when it will stop. However, we can give ourselves the freedom and the ability to say, okay, I'm only going to give energy to me focusing on my personal goals. I'm going to give energy to me focusing on my new job career. I'm going to give energy to me focusing on my educational goals. I'm going to give energy to me focusing on that which I can control. You can control your personal goals. You can control your your personal love goals. You can control your home goals. So there are some things you can control. Pandemic, you cannot control. People wearing masks or not wearing them, you cannot control that. People getting vaccinated or not getting vaccinated, you really can't control that. But what can you control? And what can you put your energy in so that there will be something that you are able to do during this time? All right. Anybody want to share anything on that? Giving your energy to that which you can control, that which you have control over. Okay, so I want to give us some things and things to focus on or think about, and then I would like for us to move towards looking at a few scriptures that talk about endurance. Mr. Cat, you want to share with us? We can't hear you. Okay, so for some reason your sound is not coming through. All right, so we're going to come back to Minister Cat. I'm sure she has something great to share, but she's going to go out and come back in. So, one of the things I wanted to share is making sure that we are focusing on the things again which we can control. I think that's very important to focus on the things we can control. All right, which means um, don't worry about those things which you cannot control. Sometimes we get too stressed, we get too caught up in that which we cannot control. And so, focusing on who is going to get the vaccination, when are they going to come up with another vaccination, when are they going to approve the booster, when are they going to, don't focus on that because you will be too stressed trying to focus on those things. Focusing on what are they going to do with the kids, when are they going to make decisions about the children in the schools, that is something you cannot control unless you are the superintendent of the schools or you are on the school board. And so we have to begin to put our energy into those spaces and places where we have some control. Okay. And so we want to make sure that we are always, always, always uh, not worrying about those things which we cannot control and giving time and energy to those things which we can. All right. So we're going to see if Minister Cat has her sound back. Okay. Minister Cat.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. I think that's what the trouble is sometimes. I think we get so focused on burying ourselves in the things we cannot control. Most of the time we cannot control a lot of things. Instead of saying, okay, well, I can control washing my hands, I can control wearing my mask, I can control, staying 10 feet apart from individuals, I can control how I shop in the supermarket and what time of day I go in the supermarket and how many people are in the supermarket. Those are things that we can control. Now, like Bishop said, we cannot control the fact that when is the vaccines are coming out, when are people being vaccinated, and how many people are going to get it, and why the parents ain't getting it, and the kids is in school, and those things would drive us crazy. And actually, a lot of stuff in the beginning of the year, they said the kids was going back to school. I was like, well, how the kids going back to school? They ain't got vaccines for these babies, and what about the kindergartens and everything? So I was like so focused on everything that I didn't have control over, instead of focusing on, okay, well, I need my baby to have 12 masks in her backpack just in case she needs to switch out, she lose one, whatever, because she's a kindergarten. So I had to prepare napkins and hand sanitizer and stuff like that. So we can do better at focus on the things that we can control or make a difference or change in our lives to get better. And I think that sometimes what we focus on the things we cannot control, and we get ourselves all worked up, and we don't know how to bring ourselves back to how we can problem solve.
Thank you, Minister Cat. You're absolutely right. And I do think that some of the parents were losing their minds to use that lightly over the kids. And different people just had lots of challenges. Many people had some challenges with, going back to work and going into the workspace and workplace. And so, it's been a lot. And so, when we talk about mental health and mental wellness, we've got to learn to give energy to those things which we can control. Okay? And find out what it is that you can control and then work on that. Okay? Deal with that. And so that's very important. So, once again, don't give energy to things that you cannot control because you'll be very frustrated. And if you're going to endure, which means you're going to survive this, if you're going to still be able to thrive and survive in the midst of this situation, then you've got to learn to let some things go and let those who are handling those things handle them. And you handle those things or focus on those things which you can control. All right. And then I think it's always important to accept um, things by looking at our past. Looking at our past will help us to be able to accept things. Okay. And so, what I mean by that is many times if you are thinking about how you got over last time, how you survived before, how God took care of you and brought you out, then some of the stress ought to not be as high when you think about it. Okay, because we know that God is a faithful God. God is always there for us, always going to do great things on behalf of his people. And so when you think about that, even though it might look bleak, even though you're in a challenging situation right now, I just believe that God is still going to bless. God is still going to cover us. God is still going to deliver us. More importantly, God is still going to provide for us. God is still going to do great things for us as God always does. Okay. And so I just believe that we should be able to, at some point, just trust God with whatever is going on. And so I just want us to make sure that we are focusing on God when we look at our situation and how God will bring us through and has brought us through in the past. Um, I'm trying to see if we have dual pages going here with Empowerment Liberation Cathedral. I think we do. And so we want to make sure that we remember how God has kept us. We remember how God has brought us out. We remember how God continued to cover us and protect us the last time, the time before that, the time before that. Anybody can say, God kept me so many times, I ought not even be worried this time. Okay? That ought to be somebody's sentiment. If you've come through some things, if God has brought you out, if God has delivered you, if God has healed you, if God has kept you and covered you, and you have a true testimony about how many things you have survived, then your statement tonight ought to be, I don't have any reason to be worrying because I've seen God do it for me too many times. And if God did it for me back then surely God is going to do it for me now. All right. And so if you have endured before, this is what I want to remind somebody of. If God has kept you before in the past, then why would God not keep you again? All right. Somebody needs to think about that tonight. God is the same God that kept you in the midst of your sickness. God is the same God that kept you when you thought you were going to lose your mind. God is the same God that kept you when you were about to lose everything. God is the same God that kept you when the enemy tried you and you thought that he was going to win the war. Okay, so if God kept you then, why would God not keep you now? Why would you not be able to endure now? If we serve the same God, why would we not be kept now? All right. Somebody ought to comment on how God has kept you, and how. Thank you, Tissa. I don't know why, Tissa. I can't see your put your comment up here, Tissa. But I think maybe we have two pages. Y'all let me know if we have two pages. Um, but I just think that, you know, we have to remember what God has already done. We have to remember how God has already kept us and how God has already blessed us and how God has already done so many things for us that we don't have no reason to feel like God is not going to do it again. We ought not have any reason to think that God won't do it again. Okay, so after you look at your past, then I want to remind you to prioritize your relationship. Okay? Prioritize your relationship. So I need somebody to begin to, when you say prioritize, Bishop, what do you mean? Somebody's saying that. Okay? So when you prioritize your relationship, that means that you are connecting with those who are going to be positive, and you're going to also utilize staying connected. How many times have I said that at ELC? Stay connected, stay connected, stay connected, stay connected. How many times have I said? I've said that numerous times, to stay connected. All right. And so I want to tell somebody tonight that you cannot not move yourself away from negative people in times of challenges. Okay. You cannot stay with people who are not going to offer encouragement, not going to stand with you, not going to pray with you, and not going to work to lift your spirits in the midst of these situations. And so it's important to make sure that you prioritize relationships. So that means if your friend always got something negative to say, always want to focus on what's wrong with you and what's going on in your life, then maybe when you're working on enduring and surviving a situation, maybe that's the time to take a break from your good girlfriend. Okay? Maybe you need to find some other good girlfriends or good guy friends who are encouragers, who are listeners, who ain't always interjecting something in your situation. Anybody know that sometimes, thank you, Carol, for joining us tonight. Anybody know that sometimes folks will interject stuff in your situation that have you all messed up? Okay. So you want some listeners around you, people who can listen. First of all, listen to you and listen to God for you. All right. I think I said something there. Listen to you and listen to God for you. You want those kind of people around you. So you want to prioritize relationships. All right. And prioritizing relationships means sometimes you got to let some folks go and add some other people. Okay. But you want to have some listeners around you. I think it's important to have listeners because people don't always need to be talking. I'm of the belief that if you always talking, you don't have no time to hear God. All right. And so if you are listening, then there is time and space for God to speak. Okay. So let us prioritize relationships, connect with those who can support us, connect with those who can encourage us, and connect with those who will stand with us along the way. Okay. Now, sometimes in the midst of situations when we're going through, when things are happening in our lives, then we tend to withdraw. We tend to isolate ourselves. We tend to move back or step back from everybody. Anybody do that? Can anybody raise their hand and say that you have stepped back, you have isolated yourself, you have kind of removed yourself because you didn't want to necessarily be in the public eye with what you were going through? Um, Somebody comment and tell us if you've done that before. But I just believe that you cannot withdraw. You cannot move away from your support system in the midst of the storm. All right. And we're all in the storm together. But still, even in the midst of everybody being in the storm together, there are some who wanted to withdraw. There's some who wanted to, thank you, Slim Natural Hair. There's some who wanted to just kind of move away from the crowd. Some who wanted to not be seen by others, okay, and just kind of have shelter alone. But I want to say you can't do that. You want to make sure that you are staying connected because this is your support system. These are your encouragers. These are your people who are listening to God for you. And these are your people who are going to be honest with you. These are your people who are going to lift you up and help you along the way. And so, thank you, John, for sharing. And so, we want to make sure that we are staying connected. It's very easy to disconnect. We've just heard from two people, and I know that there's some more people who disconnect as well. There's some more people who withdraw in tough times. But I want to say stay connected. Throughout this whole pandemic, Deacon Sylvester, have I not said stay connected? Mr. Cat, have I not said stay connected? I've said stay connected because we are all supporting each other. But it's very easy to disconnect. It's very easy to withdraw. And so when you stay connected, you stay with the people who are going to encourage you. You stay with the people who are going to tell you what they believe God is saying in this time. You stay with the people who, when they see you falling down, they're going to lift a hand and pull you up, lend a hand and pull you up. Okay? So I don't want to see y'all withdraw. Deacon Sylvester, Minister Cat, y'all want to say anything on that? Okay, we'll have Minister Cat and then Deacon Sylvester.
I find it, it's important to stay connected when you have a great support team. Um, and when you're going through anything, when you have a great support system, it's good to stay connected and try not to pull away, even in the difficult times. But sometimes you have to pull away from those people who are not pouring into your spirit as much as you pouring into their spirit and encouraging them. Because some of them people are just pulling from you and they are draining you faster than anything. You're sinking faster than anything, and you're not. So we have to know the difference. How many people are we actually carrying who is giving back? Or how many people we are carrying that is totally taken and they are dragging us along with them into this dark place. So, we have to determine, are we to stay or are we to let go of that particular person or persons in order for us to stay afloat and be able to stay connected to the source that is helping us to thrive and to get by and to win. I cannot be with people who don't want to see me win. Automatically, I would disconnect myself because it's too much to carry when you're carrying a long dead weight and they are this constantly talking negative into your ear about what you're doing and what your plans. And oh girl, I did so and so that. Girl, you better watch out because 10 people lost their job and you may be losing your job next. Thanks for telling me that. I really needed to hear that at the time. So people don't know what to say. I want to be with people who's going to tell me, oh, you're going to win, you're going to be okay, God got you. So you have to be with people that's going to pour into your spirit, who's going to pray for you, who's going to go to the throne of grace when you can't go to the throne of grace. You have to know when those people are pulling from you that it's taking too much out of you, because it is a bad place to be in. So know who's pulling and know who's giving.
Deacon Sylvester.
Right. Well, she pretty much said everything I was going to say. But what I will encourage people is that when you are going through whatever situation that you're going through, um, that as Bishop said and as Minister Kat said, it's not healthy to withdraw. And so I remind folks that you're not in this alone. And so if you think about the situation, if before you go into a valley or a dark space and you want to withdraw, think about all of those provisions because has provided so many different types and levels of provisions. They are so unlimited that some of those provisions may be these people that are around you that have been through the same situation, that knows your past, that has your best interest at heart and will support you. And so I guess what I'm saying is that when you're in a good space, we should praise God, right? But when you're in a good space, evaluate those people that are around you to make sure that those are the people that you want around you when you're down and when you're going through the situation.
Thank you. I think that was a great point to, have good people around you, but also know those people who are around you so that when you're in a bad situation, you can definitely know who will be able to stand with you and who will be able to encourage you along the way. And so we want to make sure that we are not withdrawing. Also, try to avoid negative people. Anybody think that I was going to say that? Avoid negative people. When you're in the midst of a situation, a challenging situation, avoid negative people. How many of y'all uh, heard negative people talk during this pandemic? It has not been a good thing. And sometimes that negativity just sucks you in. It's like a vortex. Next thing you know, you're talking the same stuff they talking. Okay, so we want to, at all costs, avoid when we can negativity. Avoid negative people. Try to make sure we are not connecting with people who are magnifying the problem and who are simply focused on the problem and not steering us toward any type of solution. So we want to make sure we're giving energy over to those who are listening, who are encouraging, who are helping us to find solutions and know how to be positive in the midst of challenging times. And so I think it's very important that we remember to, if at all possible, avoid negativity and avoid negative people. So when we look at expanding our network, sometimes we got to do that. Okay, so if you have these negative people around you, then how can you expand and how can you go beyond or go outside of that particular circle? And so you can go outside of that negative circle by expanding your network. And, it's helpful, even though sometimes we don't want to, but it's helpful in the midst of challenging times and in the midst of difficult situations when we're trying to endure, survive something, to find people who are in those same types of situations. So, for example, if you are enduring a situation with your health, are there any other people who are going through something with their health? And maybe how can you connect with them if they are a positive group? So there are many groups out here today that can help you with what you are experiencing or what you're going through. And so we have to sometimes be willing to come outside of our box and to connect with other people. And so if you are struggling, let's just say with a some type of illness, who else has that illness and how can you connect with them so they can tell you maybe some things that they've done that helps them still to thrive, help them still to survive, and help them not feel like the world is over because they have gotten this diagnosis. Okay, and so I want you to know that it helps to sometimes connect with other people who you normally would not connect with, but because of this trial or tribulation that you may be going through, that you're now enduring, surviving in the midst of, you will connect with these people or this group of people. And so I think it's important to begin to connect with other people outside of our traditional groups. Okay. Now, we want to make sure that we're getting enough exercise. Bishop, why we need to be exercising? Because exercising helps you to, first of all, release some things that you may be feeling. It helps you to get your endorphins going, and then that will move you to a different place. Okay, and so that's why oftentimes the doctor says, don't just sit around. Don't sit on the couch all day. Don't sit down all day. Even if you at work, don't sit all day. Get up and walk, and take a break and move, because you got to get some things to moving in your body. Okay, and so I think it's important that we exercise and make sure that we're doing something to keep the body as healthy as possible, but to also clear our minds and give us an opportunity to think about something else. Okay. Now, um, if anybody is going through something, should they keep it to themselves? There's a belief that says I shouldn't talk to nobody about what I'm going through. Just keep it to myself. I'm just going to do this on my own. But were we meant to go through things on our own? Were we meant to survive things on our own? I believe that we were meant to be in community with one another. Now, I don't mean to go tell everybody your business. I'm not saying that. Um, but it does mean that sometimes we may need to talk about what is happening in our lives. And sometimes we may need some support along the way. And so I believe it's a good thing when we can talk to someone about what we are experiencing. But we have to know who we can trust, and we have to know who's in our corner, and we have to know who actually has our best interests at heart. Okay. And so let us always remember to make sure that we are, you know, having conversations with people who actually are in our corners. So, having said that, I want you to think about who you're going to talk to about your situation the next time you have one. I want you to assess the people who are around you. And when you feel like you're in a situation that is a difficult one and you don't know what to do and you don't know if you're going to make it, who will you talk to? I want you to think about that person and make sure you have that person's name on a piece of paper or in your mind, so that when that situation comes around, you'll know that you can call them, you'll know that you can talk to them, and you'll know that they will be there for you to encourage you, to listen to you, to affirm you, as well as to try to give you some solutions. Okay? So now when we look at scripture, I want to start out with Galatians 6 and 9. Galatians 6 and 9. Um, Galatians 6 and 9. I need y'all to turn to the scripture. Galatians 6 and 9. New Testament for anybody who needs to know. The word reads, let us not become weary in well doing or in doing good. As some versions say, I'm reading from the NIV. For in the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. If we do not give up. And so I think that that's important to note. And thank you, John, for commenting. It's important to tell them they're not going through it alone. It could restore their faith. You're absolutely right. Um, so when we look at let us not grow weary in doing well, sometimes we think, I'm doing all this for what? I don't see anything turning around. I don't see anything changing. I don't see, um, where the benefit is. And so I'm doing all of this for what? I heard a young person tell me about 3 weeks ago. They had done everything right. They had done all they were supposed to do. And it still seemed like their situation was not turning around. It still seemed like God was not blessing them. It still seemed like nothing was happening on their behalf. And things were still going haywire. Anybody, does that sound like anybody's story? And so all I could tell them was trust God. It won't be this way always. And that's what I'm going to tell you right now as you endure in your situation, as you thrive and continue to survive in whatever it is that you're going through. It won't be that way always. And so I want you to hear the word of the Lord on tonight that says, don't become weary in well doing, or don't become weary in doing what is right. Don't become weary in doing the right thing, which means don't stop doing what you know you're supposed to do. Don't stop doing the right thing because of what it looks like. Don't stop doing what you know you're supposed to do because of what it feels like. Don't stop doing the right thing because of what people may say. Don't stop doing what you believe you are to do, for in the due season, in proper time, you will reap if you don't give up. You will be blessed if you don't give up. You will get what you were supposed to get if you hang on in there. And so I came to tell somebody tonight, hang on in there. Don't give up on God. Don't give up on God. Hang on in there because things will turn around after a while. I know that seems cliche, but things will turn around after a while. And so you just have to know that even though it might get hard, even though you might feel like crying some days, even though you might feel like giving up sometimes, and a lot of people have experienced that. Don't think it's just you. A lot of people have that testimony. But when you talk about enduring doesn't always feel good. Enduring doesn't always look good. Enduring doesn't always make people say positive things. But you have to know you cannot give up. Don't give up before you see the blessing. Don't give up before God gets a chance to pour out in your life. And so don't, get weary in well doing. And does anybody receive that on tonight? Don't get weary in well doing, because we know that God has the final say. God is the one who will bless. God is the one who will reward. And so I don't want you to get weary in well doing. All right. Anything, Deacon, Minister Cat, don't get weary in well doing. All right. So the next scripture we want to look at, y'all remember that's Galatians 6:9. It tells you, do not give up. If you don't get anything else from that scripture, just remember, do not give up. Thank you, Tisa. Do not give up. Anybody else? Somebody else type that in. Do not give up. I'm not sure why some of y'all are not coming up here on the screen. But do not give up. Okay? Minister Cat.
I used to tell my sons all the time that they're supposed to get the door for the young women and different things like that in the church and stuff, and everywhere they go. So my son used to get frustrated a lot because he used to hold the door, and some of the young ladies didn't never say thank you or whatever, because people are busy, people are going about their day. A lot of people don't say thank you. He's like, oh, I ain't gonna hold the door for him next time. I say, well, what you mad for? Are you doing it from the kindness of your heart, or are you doing it just to get a thank you or whatever, or a couple of numbers? Boy, hold the door. So I wanted to teach him that it's right to hold the door. The difference is, are you doing it for the right reasons? Because a lot of people do things for the wrong reasons. That's why they get weary in their wrongdoing and they well doing, because they do it for the praise. They do it for the recognition. They do it for the thank yous. They do it for somebody to say, "Oh, that girl right there, that girl right there, that girl can preach, or that girl right there, that girl." Do it because of the love of it, and because it's right, and because it's of God. And you're doing it for God, because God petitioned us to do these things. So I just think that, once we are clear on the expectations of what God has for us, what people are doing, it wouldn't really bother us after a while. But in our natural sense of things, a lot of people looking for that reward. Now, I remember my son told me one day, I ain't waiting to get to heaven. I want my reward right now. Why I can't get rewarded right now? I was like, boy, if you just don't go away from me. But if you understand it, then you will be, if you know the word in the scriptures, then you understand why the Bible is telling us this, then it'll be more clear to you, and you won't be so caught up and so upset when things like this happen, and you don't feel you getting that gratification right here on earth, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And John, we thank you for commenting. John says, do not give up. And, we are a microwave society, and we always want to have that quick gratification. But sometimes we got to endure to the end. That's what the word says. And so when you look at going through, when you look at surviving, uh, sometimes, we give ourselves a week, we give ourselves a month. But we don't feel like we should be in a situation for those 6 months, especially not 18. All right. And so we are still enduring the pandemic. We're still enduring the racism. We're still enduring the sexism. We're still enduring the heterosexism, and we cannot give up. That's what I want to say to you. And so, eventually something will happen. We saw our ancestors, if I can go here for just a moment, we saw our ancestors endure slavery. When we go back and watch those films, many of us say, hey, it couldn't have been me. I would not have had anybody beating on me, whipping me, stripping my skin, and all of this, and hanging my relatives from trees. But they endured, and the laws changed, and people were able to prevail. God brought them out. It may not have been exactly what they wanted, where everybody was treated 100% equal, but God did bring them out. And so we have to know at some point our situations will change. Now, they had plagues during biblical times. We do know that. And so this is not totally unheard of, even though people living now have never experienced a pandemic until now. But we do know that God will step in and heal the land. And so when, we don't know. How, we don't know. But all we can do is continue and not get weary in well doing. Okay? We cannot give up. We got to do what we know is right to do and continue to trust and believe God. And so I would say, while you are doing what you know to do, continue to trust and believe God. And that is key in the midst of this particular text, I believe, and in the midst of what we all are going through at this time. And so now another text that we want to look at is Philippians 4:13. Somebody turn to Philippians 4:13. Um, we want to look at that particular text, Philippians 4:13. Minister Cat or Gary, one of y'all, for some reason, y'all's texts are still coming through on the screen. I'm not sure why everybody else's are not. But Philippians 4:13, y'all put it on that where to come across the screen. It says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Or some versions say, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so now, with that, when you talk about being in the midst of a situation we've never experienced before, when you talk about going through things which we never expected to have to deal with in our lifetime, when you talk about dealing with things that we thought were over would never come back around, but here they are again, we have to look to the word that says, I can do it because Jesus is helping me. And when Jesus is helping me, I have to know I can do anything. Okay, so I can survive this with Christ on my side. I can survive this because I know one who has more power than me is helping me. And so when you look at Jesus and the power that Jesus has, there should not be anything that you cannot do. When you look at Jesus Christ, who saved you, who covered you, who walks with you each and every day, there should not be anything that you cannot do. And so we want to make sure that we always remember this particular text, Philippians 4:13, that says, I can do all things through Christ. We used to say that. Y'all remember that? All y'all old church folks, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. We used to say that before we leave the church. And so we have to remember that we can do anything when it comes to surviving and thriving